Hi, everybody. My name is Patrick Hanlon. I'm joined here today with Peter Deshane. We are going to be going over, we're joining you from Bickling Financial Services. We're going to be reviewing some of the tips and tricks as far as logging into your Bickling account, the WealthView portal. That's going to give you information about performance. There's some spots there to engage with some of the blogs and other social media that we put out. And additionally, a spot there if you want to save some additional files. So we're going to go through a couple of different things for you on here. We're hoping that this can get you, 3/4 of the way, 9/10 of the way through your understanding of using the Black Diamond tool. But if you do have questions after reviewing any of these, please feel free to give us a call directly, set up a time to review the tool itself. So without further ado, I can start sharing my screen and we can go through some of this process. The first things first, where will you go in to log in? The first place you're going to want to go to log in is directly to bickling.com. Once you head to bickling.com, in the top right hand corner, you're going to see where it has client login and a WealthView portal. That's going to bring up this next screen. Part of being set up as a client with Bickling, once you've, whether we've set up an account for you through Fidelity or Schwab or a direct custodial account with 529 plan provider, we would get your information and we would link your accounts, and then you would receive an email inviting you to the portal. So when you get that email to invite you to the portal, there's going to be some questions to answer, set up, your username and password, and your username is going to be the email that you provide us originally. So for sake of doing this, I am using my wife's account. And if you do have any issues, right on here, there is a forgot your password spot and additional help too, should you need it. But if all goes well, the first spot that it's going to take you to is this landing page. So this is our Bickling landing page. So depending on the primary advisor that you're working with and where they're located, as you may or may not know, we have 3 offices, one in Linfield, one in Lexington, and one in Southeaston. Depending on who your primary advisor is, you're going to have that as your home location there. You're also going to have your primary advisor that you're going to be working with. And you're also likely, this is again sort of a test scenario, but you're also going to likely have other members of the team on there too. A second advisor that you might be working with and have interactions with, and probably a customer service representative as well. It'll have their information located on there. So if you wanted to reach out directly to your advisor, you can click that link. If you wanted to call us, the phone number is listed there as well. And if you wanted to schedule some time, this gives you access directly to your advisor's calendar, and you would be able to set time either as an in-person meeting, a phone call, or a virtual meeting with them. You can do that all right through here on that tool. I'll come back to the accounts and allocations in a second, but I want to show you some of the other parts of this landing page once you get logged in. The first part is going to be the vault. So this is where a lot of times, especially in the March and April timeframe, people are looking for their tax forms. Your 1099s are going to be automatically uploaded here. So you would have a digital copy. Should you need them, that gets uploaded usually in late February, early March timeframe. Once they become available, this is a spot where you could get them. Additionally, there might be some information that you want to have a digital footprint for. What could that be? Maybe you have the first and last page of a trust account that you have. Maybe there's, a copy of a will that you want to have. Maybe you have physical stock certificates that you want to have a digital version should something happen to you that your loved ones would be able to find and locate. And again, have just a digital footprint for. All of that can be uploaded and kept here in this vault should you need it. Additionally, the custodial partners that we work with are Schwab and Fidelity. So if you wanted to and you have an account with one or each of those, you would be able to go directly to the portal and view those accounts right from this screen as well. And one of the last parts is just looking at what are some of the other insights that Bickling can provide. So listed here, we would have different topics for what we might be reviewing, what we're getting client questions about, best tips going on right now. Maybe it is topical, maybe it is more of a thematic idea that could happen, at any time during the year. This would be where we have some of that information located, and that will give you a direct link right to our website, which we were on previously before. So you can read it right from there. Now, most people, when they're going to the Black Diamond, or when they're going into their login, the reason that they're going into that login is so that they can view their accounts, so that they can see how the performance on their accounts are doing on any given day. So in order to do that, when you first log in, this is going to be the screen that you have. You're going to have accounts, you're going to have allocation, and then it's going to ask you to click to activate that. For our purposes, I'm not going to go in and click to activate, but a couple of things to keep in mind. If you've previously, if this is the first time you're logging in with the Wealth View portal, but you have previously logged in directly to Black Diamond, it would make sense for you to clear the cache in your browser, whether you're using Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, all of those things. You would just want to clear previous cache, because sometimes you can get caught in a little bit of a loop, and that causes you to either be locked out or not be able to log in. By clearing that before you click to activate, that should alleviate some of those issues. But when you go in and click here to activate, it's going to ask you again, prompt you to log in. It's going to be the same username and login that you used to get logged into this page. And once you do that, let me take one step back. This would be the landing spot that you get to. So again, this is a demo scenario. It is a real client, but we've removed all of the particular information for them. This is where you would go into and start to review Black Diamond. Now, on the previous page that we were looking at, we had direct logins to Schwab, and you had logins to Fidelity. And so you might ask, well, why would I want to use the Black Diamond site, instead of looking at the Fidelity or Schwab sites? And it's a couple of reasons that we'll review. One reason, if you've been a long time client with Bickling, we've had prior relationships, there's a good chance that we're able to take the information from prior broker dealers, prior relationships before Hightower, and have a longer history of your account. So we like it to be able to go back a little bit further than, say, just when you opened an account with Fidelity or with Schwab. On that same note, we like Black Diamond because you are also able to link other accounts, which we'll show you how to do. So maybe you're a pre-retiree, you're putting your kids through college or getting ready to put your kids through college. You may have an account that we manage through Bickling, but you also have a 401k with your employer, and you have an outside 529 plan. There would be a way that you can link those and include everything, so you just have one login where you're able to look at the information. Again, we really like Black Diamond. It's a free service, complimentary service that we have through working with us. In order to do that, it's just entering into the agreement with Bickling. There's no additional cost for using the tool itself. So when you get to this landing page and we want to start going through more of that particular information, this is kind of some of the high level information that you got here. So starting at the very top, depending on the time of day that you're logging in, it's going to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. You can also include, if you feel the need to, you can put in your own profile picture and update that for you too. Importantly, it's going to have the total value of your account. That's going to be all accounts that are linked in here. So in the example that I was just using, if you are not currently linking outside accounts and you only have set up the accounts that we manage, that those would be the only accounts showing on that total value. So you might have other accounts elsewhere. If they are not linked, then they are not going to be reflected in that number. For our purposes, the accounts that we're looking at here are going to be accounts only that we manage. One being a beneficial IRA, meaning either a family member or somebody left an account to an individual, and they need to spend that down over, depending on the rules and time of that decedent. That's one of the accounts that's listed here. An IRA, individual retirement account that is managed at Fidelity, and then finally a trust account also that is with Fidelity. And you'll notice that all of these are going to be as of the previous night's close. So typically, if you're looking at ETF or stock positions, those are going to the values of those are going to change intraday. Mutual funds, those are only going to be priced once at the end of the trading day. So in any event, you will have the most recent price value, and it's going to be from the previous night's close. On the right-hand side, we have the top holdings. So top holdings, meaning this is across all three of these accounts. What are the highest dollar value positions that a client might own? And there could be the case, and I think it is here, where the largest holding is a money market position. That probably means that is across all three accounts that you're holding that. So this is an aggregate number for all of the accounts that you might own. It's probably not that there's 289,000 in one of these accounts, but that it is spread out across all three, again, depending on how that individual is taking distributions, how they're maybe leveraging their cash, they might be doing it that way. But even for other investments, there might be a reason why you may hold more than one or hold the same position across multiple accounts. So it's important to note that this is an aggregate number for using or looking at having the positions across multiple accounts. The watch list would be another piece to note and another piece to review. We typically do not handle individual stocks for clients, but many of our clients work for a particular company. Maybe they have a particular stock that they've been tracking and that they want to keep an eye on that maybe they don't manage and is maybe not part of their top holdings. Well, if that's the case, you can come in here and you can look at those specific holdings right in here. So let's say you wanted to make a watch list, and I'm just going to put in a couple tickers here. So we can put in Google, Tesla, and again, it's just by typing in a couple of letters. The more exact you get, the more refined the search is going to be for you. And if you go in, you might have to look through a little bit, but it'll give you the different tickers that you want here. So let's say I'm happy with my ticker symbols. Here's my watch list. These are the companies that I'm going to continue to watch. Again, you'll have updated information. Now, if you're looking at stocks, you're looking at ETFs, those are going to be intraday numbers. So it's not just going to be from the previous night's close, but there is going to be a delay. So I think it's probably about a 10 or 15-minute delay for the exact price. So you should not expect when looking at this to be an up to the second, dollar figure for where it is priced at the moment, but will generally be pretty close to what you might be looking for. Now, again, let's just say these are the ones that you like right now. And for whatever reason, you say, well, I'm selling Tesla. I don't want to include that anymore. It's not something that I want to have on my watch list. Easily enough, if you say that, you want to take that off, you just simply hit that X, Y, and now you just have these two. Maybe you decided you don't want to track Meta anymore, but I want to, or you don't want to track Tesla, but you want to track Verizon. Go in, same process, and you can put that information in as well. So as you're doing that, I believe there is a cap of like, it might be 10 different tickers that you're able to track on there, but something that some clients enjoy having, their pulse on some individual names there. Additionally, we have some external links for us. So we do have a YouTube channel where if you're watching this video, maybe you stumbled upon here, and we would have not just instructional videos like this, but also, different financial planning ideas, and hopefully helpful things that would help different clients across their financial journey, whether they're just getting started, whether they are preparing for retirement, or whether they are, into retirement. So different ideas that we would be posting regularly there and on our other social media channels as well. We'd also have our website blogs, which I showed you before. And as I mentioned, a little bit more about Bickling and our 3 different locations. So once we kind of addressed all of this on our homepage, the next spot we could look at is adding accounts. So as I mentioned, let's say you are currently working and you have a 401k elsewhere. We're in a demo scenario here, but right above where it has collapse all, there would be a tab here or a button where you're going to hit add accounts. When you add the accounts, let's just say the 401k is at Vanguard. You would search Vanguard or Empower or whomever, put in your username and login information there. Once you enter that information, it might take a couple of minutes, but it would link here to the account, and then there would be another line item that would say whatever the account that was added was. It would be not as clean as we have listed here. Typically, when we're adding new clients, it might say, here's Patrick's IRA at Fidelity or Patrick's beneficial IRA at Fidelity. And then if I were to add an individual account, or if I were to add my 401k, it might show up slightly different. So that would be something, as you're working with Bickling, we would help to go in and say, okay, this is Patrick's 401k. This is Marina's 403b. Things like that, we can customize the names for you. So that would be, something you'd want to engage with us on to clean that up and just make it a little bit neater for you. The next part where we would want to look, and this is really where the majority of time is spent for going through Black Diamond, under portfolio, you have the dashboard, and then you have these individual sections here. I'm going to go to the dashboard because the dashboard really includes all of these other sections. And let me just make sure we're at a large enough scale so that everybody's able to see it. So this would be where you would go if you wanted to take a look at some different information about your financial picture. A couple of things that you want to point out as we're looking at this page. So if there are any alerts that might be sent through, this would be where you'd be aware of those, or you want to keep an eye out for that. Your settings, if you wanted to toggle between, like I mentioned before, accounts that we are managing versus accounts that we're not managing, you could switch between those. The other one that I think is probably most widely used is this section right here. So you see that it lists, here's what the last 12 months have, brought us. You can change that date, you can change that time frame and get pretty customized for yourself. So if we just wanted to look at, this is looking at April of last year, 2025, to April of 2026. If we wanted to look at, say, year to date, that's going to change some of the performance information number and some of the information that we might be looking at. That becomes more of a talking point as we look at either the activity summary or the performance, but that's one spot where if you're looking to hone in on that particular topic, where you might want to see some of that. So I'll kind of go through each of these cards right here, just so that we can get a little further information about each of them. So the activity summary, kind of self-explanatory, but this is going to include any activity within your account. That would be if you're adding money to the account, if you're taking money out of the account, you can see that that's included right here where we have contributions and we have what the withdrawals are. And it also tells you net over the last, again, different time period, over the last 12 months, net little over $5,000 has been taken out of the account. It also helps to understand, what your gains and losses are. That gives you information about the market changes. So if your stock positions, your ETF, your mutual fund positions, if those have risen in value, you're going to have a positive number that would be listed here. If we're looking at a different time period, that might be down, but it would be reflected here to tell you if the account is up in value or if it is down in value. Last part is going to be income. So maybe you are not taking income, but you're invested in some positions that will generate some income. That number is also going to be reflected on here for you as well. So this is at again, high level, looking at all of the accounts where your assets have gone, and we can kind of go along this chart if you wanted to look at each day during the last 12 months, or roughly each day last 12 months. You can see different time periods, the peaks and valleys of how that has done. And then below, you can see how that has done for each individual account. So we have the same numbers reflected down here that we have up in this top left corner, but then we have broken down to, down here below. So in this case, if it's a beneficial IRA, there's probably rules around what that person is going to have to take out in a given year. Maybe this reflects the RMD amount that needs to come out, or it was just where they needed to pull money from first, but it's going to show you how much money was taken out from there. And then additionally, it'll have the income that was generated for that. And in this case, could be that we are more income focused in this account in the IRA, because maybe it's money that is tax deferred, so not getting taxed, until that money is coming out. Would make more sense to have it in an account, or having something generating income there, versus say in a trust, you'd be paying taxes in that given year for that type of account. So you can kind of see part of the strategy coming into play as well when you're going into the activity summary. Coming back to the main page, I'll switch over to the allocation tab. And there's a couple of different ways where you can look at this as well. The first breakdown that we have here is we have the IRA, we have the beneficial IRA, and the trust as well. So this is broken down by the different types of accounts that might be listed. You can look at that a couple of different ways as well. Maybe you wanted to look at more an asset allocation breakdown. So you can shift that so that we have, here's what we have in equities, here's what's available in cash, here's what's in fixed income, and here's what would be in alternatives. Last one, similarly, if we're just kind of poking around, just different ways of breaking it down at an even more granular level. So let me go back to the class asset allocation breakdown. So if we wanted to take a look at, okay, majority of this person's account is going to be in equities. Well, where are those equities located? What are the positions that they have? First tab down is going to be by that asset allocation. What's the breakdown between large cap, mid cap, small cap, international positions? And I want to see, what do I have in large cap value? Now, in this case, the person owns Berkshire Hathaway. That's how much of Berkshire Hathaway they own. What account is that going to be owned in? That, in this case, is owned in their IRA. So you can get very detailed down to the specific position and where it's going to be held for you. Um, if we go back and look at the cash tab, that falls under taxable money markets. And because that's going to be held in two different accounts, or we have slightly different money markets, we just had a dividend paid that we would be updating to move to the higher yielding money market. Then you have listed, as we mentioned before, this is going to be some cash across all different accounts. Greater number of cash in the IRA. And it's going to be, client specific as to why that is. But you could get in there and take a look at what is the specific breakdown of where a particular position is for the client. Another kind of interesting thing that you can do here, if we scroll back up, and I will go back up here, as I mentioned before, to the tab that allows us to look at different time periods. So let's take a little bit further view out and look at the last 5 years. So if we wanted to look at the last 5 years and what the allocation is, a cool thing that might be to look at would be to look at this account drift. That's going to be, how has the allocation of the portfolio changed over time? And so you can see here, not a huge change, but you do see that over time there has been some changes. They've been a very equity heavy portfolio, shall we say? But you have a good amount of alternatives from 2022 through about 2025, and then that position started to get a little bit lower. And at that time, we increased the cash position for that client. So it gives you an idea of being able to see, depending on what somebody's, planning horizon might be, what their goals are, those would all play a role into the asset allocation, changing and seeing a drift over time. And, depending on how long you've been working with Bickling as a client, that could be changing significantly over time. Again, as your goals might change, as your investment horizon might change, and that can be an interesting thing to kind of look at with you. Performance, we can go in and look here. This is where most people are going to be spending their time when they want to come in. If it's not that first page to see just a snapshot of how I'm doing, they want to go in and take a look at how am I doing during, over a specific time period. So we'll keep it on the last 5 years for the time being. You're also going to want to look at, how are you going to be grouping these? It's similar to what we were just looking at on the allocation tab. And the first part is going to be your account, and then it might be the class, and then it's going to be the specific investment. That's kind of the default that we would like. But if you wanted to look at it a little bit differently and to say, I want to look at just the asset and how that's performed, and then I will drill down to the account, you have that option to do it too. You are able to kind of customize that part for yourself. But let's just take a look here at a Fidelity IRA that they might have. Again, we'll look at an equity position, and then we can see how a particular category would have done during that time period. Again, depends on what we might be looking at and what time period we're reviewing, but there's going to probably be there would be the position or the asset class, and then where we are also compared next to a benchmark for that particular client as well. So if you wanted to dig a little deeper and I wanted to say, how am I doing versus a particular, or how is a particular investment holding up for me? You could go in and you could see, here's how I'm doing, here's how this position's doing, and here's how it's doing compared to the benchmark. And this is looking at the last 5 years. We could take a look at how does that look over the last 12 months and have a little bit different perspective on that. You could take a look and see how does that look year to date, shorter time period, but it's gonna reflect different thoughts. And what some people will do here is to go in and have a look and say if something is maybe not, you have further questions about a particular investment that you hold, that's a good reason to reach out to your advisor and maybe have a more detailed conversation about, why we like that position. As you just saw me going through that, there's going to be a different position, or there's going to be different performance based on the time period that we're looking at. And so there might be a particular reason why we like a position over, say, a 3 to 5 year period that might not be reflected in how it's performing right now, year to date. So those would be very good questions to engage with and talk with your advisor on. Didn't mention this before, but I've kind of been going back and forth, just clicking back to the dashboard to get back to the main screen. Another way to do that would be to scroll over the portfolio tab, and you'd also be able to click on any of the basically what shows up in the dashboard as well. The projected income is an interesting one to take a look at also. Now, everything that we've been talking about so far in regards to the Black Diamond tool is looking at specific performance that has already happened. So it's backward looking. In this part, we're actually looking at what we could expect over the future. So it's taking information that we've had in the past, but projecting it into the future. Different views to look at that. If you wanted to say, what is it going to be for the next 12 months? Or maybe you wanted to look at what is it going to be just through the end of this year. And where this becomes kind of important for people, particularly as you are maybe not yet retired and you're not solely focused on taking income from your portfolio, but maybe you own some income investments. And what is interesting to see for people is you can say, despite market volatility, if the market's either going up over a certain period, going down for a certain period, we can project forward what the income that's going to be generated is going to be. For instance, in this case, if we go back to the last 12 months, as we're having a conversation, reliably we can say, no matter what happens in the market, your portfolio is going to be generating $15,000 for you this year. So for a retiree who might have maybe a pension, they're going to have Social Security, and then we're going to be generating income for them. Those three things can inform, how you're going to be, what are your cash flows going to look like into retirement. And for some people, if you said 15,000, they might say, well, that is not going to cover my expenses in retirement. I need that to be higher. That would be, again, a conversation that you'd want to engage with your financial advisor on. And maybe that means that you're going to be looking at things that are going to be paying larger income, investments that are paying a larger income, versus in this example, what we're looking at is a portfolio that is pretty equity focused, so not very income heavy. But it's good to understand that no matter what, we have a forward-looking projection of what you could anticipate to be receiving through dividends on equity-paying stocks, alternative investments, or fixed income. Another one that people will like to take a look at is going to be the transactions tab. So transactions are going to get very detailed. You can see here, if a dividend was paid, that is going to be reflected in here, especially if it's end of the quarter. That's a lot of times where we start to see some of that. Additionally, right here in the middle, you can see if there was a distribution that was made. A lot of this information, particularly when it comes to taking money from a retirement account, is going to be reflected year end and in your tax forms. But sometimes, a CPA or a tax preparer will only need the numbers to be verified for them. This would be a spot where you could go and take a look at some of that information. So in this case, where we had a distribution last month, the total dollar amount was listed here for what came out. And you can also see what was withheld for federal taxes. So that goes as a prepayment to the federal government. And then for state taxes, going to assume, don't know for sure, but probably a Massachusetts resident, that number is going to be reflected here also. So those would be accounted for, and when you get your 1099 statement. But some people will meet with their tax preparer, accountant a couple of times during the year. If you're able to provide some of this information ahead of time to them, maybe it makes things slightly smoother as we get to the March, April timeframe, when it's a little bit more of a time crunch. They will have a better idea of what your tax liability is going to be for that year, or what your refund might be, if you're able to provide some of this information before the tax forms come out. I'm going to skip capital markets for a second. I'll come back to that. Another one that we like to look at would be this gain loss tab. And you're probably sensing a theme here where you can group these by, a different variety of topics that's going to make the most sense for you as to how you want to look at it. So I'll switch this just to the account level and then the individual asset that we might be looking at. And you have the full portfolio here. You have what your cost basis would be. That would be your total original investment. Where that is right now is going to be the ending value. So what's that total value? You have unrealized short-term gains, unrealized long-term gains, and your total unrealized gains listed here. Unrealized gains are going to be, let's say, for instance, and maybe we can find a specific security to make this a little bit more applicable. So we have this JP Morgan Growth Advantage fund listed here. There's a short-term gain of $951.16. That would be a gain within the last 12 months. Those are typically, if you were to, that means you haven't sold it yet, but on paper, you have an unrealized gain within 1 year. Unrealized long-term gains are going to be in this account closer to $8,216 and change. Those are going to be gains that you have accrued over the course of more than 12 months. And the reason why that's important is the taxability of that. Short-term gains under 1 year typically get added to your ordinary income in the year that you actually sell them. And then the longer-term gains would be dependent on your tax bracket and what your capital gains rate that you would have to pay would be. So it helps to make sort of an informed picture here as to what you may want to do with some of your unrealized gains. As long as they're unrealized, you're not paying taxes on those. But the moment that you start to have some of these either long-term gains or short-term gains, once they're realized, that is going to become, in theory, if it's a taxable account, a tax liability for you at the end of the year. Now, in this situation, the only, right now, year to date, realized long-term gain is going to be in the beneficial IRA. So this client would not owe taxes on that, but it shows the actual gain within the portfolio for them during this time year to date. And again, if you wanted to look at different time periods, that would be where you would go in here, whether it's 3 years, year to date, last 12 months. And that's going to give you a little bit more information how that might inform your situation. Um, a real way of looking at this would be if we are managing a particular account, and let's just say there's something that you've held for a long time that's done very well, and you have a lot of gains in there, but it's not something that maybe we as a firm want to hold anymore. Um, and then you have, let's call that position A. Position B is going to be something that maybe we also don't particularly like over the course of a certain time period, and you have a $10,000 loss in position B and a $10,000 gain in position A. By looking at this page in the unrealized losses or unrealized gains tab, that can help us and inform a decision on if we want to trade those positions, try to work with you and work with your tax professional as to how we want to manage those unrealized gains. Do we want to realize them this year because you have a large tax liability elsewhere, so we want to create more losses? Maybe you are in the process of selling a primary residence or another property, so you really want to make sure that you don't have any large gains for this year. This would be a tab where, again, you can go in and look yourself, should you want to, or it's something that we're engaging with in reviewing and would talk with you about in the course of our meetings throughout the year. Last one here, just to review, is the capital markets tab. This is not going to be specific to your account of Bitcoin, but just tracking some specific indices that we think can be beneficial in looking at your account. In this case, again, we're looking at kind of the last 3 years is what we've had. But it gives you a rough idea of maybe, what might be working, what type of environment is conducive to what we're looking at right now, and what might be a different spot to look at, or where might there be other opportunities. Month to date, it's a very short time horizon, but you can kind of see what's performing well, what maybe not performing well, quarter to date, also year to date. You have a better idea on those things. And then over, the last 3 years, that's going to give you a larger sample size to kind of look at where things where you might be better equipped to be during a certain time period. So for us, what this helps to inform is in the nightly news, you're going to hear a lot about, the S&P 500 and current performance of that. You're probably not going to hear as much about, the Russell 1000 growth, or Russell 1000 value, some of these smaller indices, even, in international or in emerging markets index also. Those aren't going to be ones that are generally talked about, but we use this as a place, and you can use it for your own, information and knowledge moving forward to gain an understanding of what might be doing well right now, what might not be doing well, and what would be a good way to engage with us on would be to say, okay, well, if something is not doing well right now, what are going to be the factors that help that do better? For instance, if we're looking at, smaller caps or mid cap type companies, if we're in a lower interest rate environment, though, that's typically going to be a pretty good place for those. Same thing, with our bond index. If it's a lower interest rate environment, that can be a very good place to be, as you typically see the prices of bonds go up as interest rates go down. Conversely, if we are in a rising interest rate environment, as we were earlier in this decade, coming out of the pandemic, you might see you would see the prices of bonds go down, and then you would say, it was not such a great place to be over if we were looking at, say, a year where interest rates were going up, 1%, 2.5% over the course of a couple of months. You're going to see that quarter to date, those numbers are not looking, so good. So just a good way to sort of understand that your portfolio even though you might see or hear a headline on the news talking about the market and the Dow Jones or the S&P is down this much, that is likely only one part of a client's portfolio. And it's really all of these different factors that we're managing and looking to help invest for you, interacting with each other, and how those are going to be doing, not just over the course of, say, a quarter or a week, but really how do they do over a 6-month period, a 12-month period, 18, 24 to multiple year period. So that's the majority of information as it pertains to Black Diamond and kind of where we um, see our clients going on here and reviewing different things. Um, this is hopefully a way that can get you a good baseline to be able to go in and look at specific parts of your account. It'll help you get logged in. It'll help you get a snapshot of what your portfolio is. It'll help you get a better understanding of maybe how certain benchmarks are performing against your portfolio, give you an idea a little bit of your cash flows and dollars that are coming in versus dollars that are going out. It's a good way, I think, to sort of get you started. But as I mentioned several times throughout this recording, if you have specific questions or you get to a certain point, maybe you're looking for a specific transaction that you discussed with us last year and you took money out, you have to bring that, you have to have receipt of that for a tax question or other cases. If you're having trouble going through and doing that, that's a perfect opportunity to reach out to us and we can kind of walk you through some of those things. It's a pretty intuitive tool as you get using it. And like anything else, the more you use it, the more comfortable you get with it, the better you will be and really have a good understanding of using it. But if you do have questions, you should always feel free that you can reach out to us, schedule some time with us. We're more than happy to review those things with you. Appreciate the time that you've taken to sit down and go through some of this stuff with us. And we look forward to speaking with you again very soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Patrick. That was excellent.
Thanks.